Can we get them down in the front row? Hi. How are you guys? Good. Your Hilltop Heritage? Cool. So today we have an Indigenous Alaska artist, Krista Worl, and she's going to be blown into molds to make a sculpture of hers. These are molds here you can see. And they're all based on traditional form line design, which is a kind of artwork done by the Tlingit tribe. And so she's working with our resident team of glass blowers, and we're going to make some of her sculptures out of glass. Have you guys been here before? Yeah, you probably all have. Yeah, okay. So you guys are Science of Art. Do you guys, anybody remember about heat transfer? Yeah, okay. Can you name me the three kinds of heat transfer? Yes. That's one. When the heat is carried by a liquid or a gas, what's that one? Is anybody? Radiation, okay. Okay, when the heat is carried by a liquid or a gas, it's convection. So when you go, you never heard about convection? Okay, there's three kinds. There's radiation. That's like when you're standing outside in the summer and the sun feels warm on your face. That's radiation. So radiation, the heat is coming from the sun, it strikes your face, and you feel warm. And convection is when the heat is transferred by a gas or a liquid. So when you go wash your hands, the hot water is carrying the heat to your hands. That's convection. When you stand in front of a heating vent in your house and it blows warm air, that's convection because the heat is, yeah, exactly. You know what the third one is? The third one is conduction. That's when the heat is transferred through something solid. So if you have a frying pan on the stove and the handle starts to get warm, the heat is coming through the handle is solid, that's conduction. If you're holding a hot drink in your hand and you feel the warmth through the cup, that's conduction because it's coming through the solid wall of the cup. When it comes through the air, like the sun, that's radiation. Can you guys feel the heat from that oven there? the big round oven? Which one is that? Radiation. You got it. You guys are smart. So if you look over there, see that little plaster block there? That's one of our molds. So we're going to make a glass bubble. We're going to drop it in the mold and blow, and it'll take on the shape inside the mold. Are you guys with the Hilltop Heritage? So you guys remember your heat transfer? Okay, what are the three kinds of heat transfer? What are the three different kinds of the ways that heat is transferred? Radiation? There's two more. Any clues? Do you remember convection? What's convection? No, that's the other one. That's conduction. When you come through some solid, that's conduction. When it comes through the air, like the heat from the oven or the heat from the sun, that's radiation. And when it comes through a gas or a liquid, that's convection. So if you wash your hands, the water is heated up in a water heater, and the water brings the heat to your hands. That's convection. If you have a hair dryer and you dry your hair with a hair dryer, the hot air comes out of the hair dryer and brings the heat to your hair. Which one is that? No, the hair dryer blows hot air on you. A liquid or a gas? Convection. There you go. So that's Gabe standing there in the hat, black and white hat. He's blowing a glass bubble into our plaster mold. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's going to the internet. I have to go get some water.
Alrighty. Thank you, Walt, for all of your explanation. We're going to go over you all's in-class PowerPoint that you guys did when your Science of Art instructor came to your classroom. So welcome again to the Hilltop Heritage Middle School, to the hot shop here. Our visiting artist is Crystal Worl, working on a project for the SeaTac Airport. So let's go to the first slide. We're going to go over again the conduction of heat through an aluminum bar. So conduction is the transfer of heat through a material by direct contact. So in the hot shop here, the hot glass will be like the right side of the cup, which is similar to the hot water. The bar in between will be like the bar between the two different styrofoam cups, and the hand at the end functions as the cold water side of the experiment. And the next slide, we'll go over the convection of heat using honey as our fluid, as we did in the classroom. Convection is heat transfer by the movement of a heated fluid. The viscosity of glass changes when it's heated or cooled. So when we go into the reheating chamber to get the glass nice and hot, it becomes a bit more malleable to be able to shape the glass so it gets it nice and warm to change its viscosity. And then the last slide we have is radiation. Next slide. So, radiation when using a heat lamp with black and silver cans, radiation is the emission or transmission of energy in the forms of waves or particles through space or material medium. So, if we can feel the heat from where we are in reference to sitting in front of the glory holes, or sometimes when they bring the pipe over to the pipe cooler, we'll be able to feel the molten glass radiating tons of energy, tons of heat. So in a moment, I'll come around and I'll ask you all some questions about the three different sciences. Thank you so much for coming to the museum. Alrighty, so pay attention and I'll come around with some questions for you guys to get your prizes. Thank you.
So now, in the center, Gabe, in the black hat and white hat, is heating up that glass with a torch. The hot gases are coming out of the torch and warming up the glass. What kind of heat transfer is that? Hot gases? No. Radiation's like the sun. Yeah, but what kind? What kind? What kind? When the heat is transferred by a gas or a liquid. Fluid? The glass will get. Yes. Yellow? Oh, just sometimes the TV screen gets the cameras wrong, gets the colors wrong. So he's spraying that hot gas on there to heat up the glass. That's he's heating up the glass with the torch. So that hot gas is coming out of the torch and they're heating up the glass. What kind of transfer is that? It's being transferred by a gas. What? No, conduction is solid. Convection, there you go. When it's transferred by a gas or a liquid, so when you're washing your hands in the bathroom and the warm water comes down and brings heat to your hands, convection. That's convection. When you're using a hair dryer and they're blowing hot air to dry your hair, which one is that? Convection, yeah, exactly. Convection. So if it's a gas or a liquid, it's convection. If it's solid, then that's conduction. So if you're holding a hot cup of coffee in your hand gets hot, which one is that? Conduction. Conduction is solid. Convection is a gas or a liquid. Does that make sense? So he's convecting that heat onto the glass so he can shape it. He's making an eagle's head. So our guest artist, Crystal, sculpted an eagle's head, and we made a mold off that, the sculpture of the eagle, and then we blew glass into that mold, and there you have it. So all these things that we're making today are eventually going to go to the Seattle SeaTac airport, and there's going to be a big sculpture wall that's designed by our guest artist. Crystal is from Alaska. On one side of her family is Filipino and Tlingit. The other side of her family is Athabascan. And so she works in the traditional art from her heritage. Do you guys have any questions? glass is a very poor conductor of heat. So we can get one part of the glass very hot and make it soft, and we can shape that part of the glass and leave the rest of the shape alone. So these sculptures that we're making are a prototype for the sculpture that our guest artist is making for the SeaTac airport. So we're making little models, and then you guys have any questions? Who made what? Who made this place? Some construction company. I don't know. It was 22 years ago. I wasn't here. 22 years. This has been here for 22 years. They had scaffolding and ladders. If you look up there, you see in back there's a ladder that goes all the way up to the top. So now Gabe, he's got a metal paddle in his hand called a tag, and he's sharpening up the features of our eagle. So he's heating it up and making it soft, and then he's taking that metal paddle and making the features sharper. It's hard with glass to make sharp edges. Glass wants to be round, so he's going there with the paddle and crisping up the form. So when we get the glass out of the furnace, it only stays soft for a little while. So Gabe does whatever shaping he can while it's hot and soft. And when it starts to cool and stiffen, we go to the big round oven, the glory hole. So you can see, if you look on the big screen, you can see Crystal, the artist, and she's got her model. And Gabe is trying to make that look just like the model. Glass with support, what kind of heat transfer is that? heat is carried by a gas or a liquid, it's convection. So when you turn the faucet on to wash your hands and the warm water comes out, the water is carrying the heat. That's convection. When you have a torch and it's blowing hot gases on the glass, that's convection. When you stand out in the sun in the summertime and you feel the sun on your face, that's radiation. Does that make sense? We haven't made it yet. These are models that for the sculpture that she's going to make. That's going to be installed in 2026. So she's making models, little small models of the things that she's going to make for the airport. Can we put up some of Crystal's slides up on the big screen? Can you put up some of Crystal's artwork on the big screen? So there she is. There's Crystal Wall, our guest artist. That's the woman standing in the center of the workshop with her hands behind her back. That's the artist. You can see this is a design she did for an airplane for Alaska Airways. So all those drawings and graphics on the plane, they were done by Crystal. Skittle. Okay, we have some prizes here. Okay, so I'm going to question. So when you dry your hair with a hair dryer and the hot air blows on your hair, which kind is it? What? No. Yes. What? Hair dryer, the hot air is carrying the heat to your head. Convection. There you go. You said convection. I heard her. Did you say conduction? Oh, okay. I'll give you a chance. Give you a chance. Okay. When you're holding a hot cup of coffee and the heat comes through the cup, which one is that? No. Conduction. There you go. Thanks for coming in, guys. So everything that we make here has to be cooled slowly or it'll break. So we're going to take these sculptures off the metal rod. We're going to place them in an oven called the annealer, where they'll be cooled slowly overnight. So we're going to transfer the eagle's head from the rod that was originally formed on to a second steel rod called the punty. The second steel rod will hold it from the top while we shape the bottom. We'll take a pair of tweezers, dip them in water, drip a little water where we want to break it away from the metal pipe, and just a little tap will release it. Now Sarah's heating up the glass in the big round oven. The big round oven is called the glory hole. Can we put up the glory hole diagram? So there's no glass in that oven. It's just a big brick barrel with a gas burner inside. And we just use it for heating and softening the glass while we're working. Tour guide. My name is Worl.
And have you been working in glass for a long time, or is that part of your...
25 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm glad I asked the question. Wow. Did you come to glass naturally, or was that your first
Somebody
art
told me it was
form?
fun, so I took the class.
Who was it? Who told you it was fun? Like, who got you in?
A lady named Linda. You probably don't know her.
No, I don't, but it's nice to know it was a lady. And you were a young man, and the lady said,
She said, well, you got to try it. This is fun.
really?
Yep.
Oh, wow. And the name of the artist you're working with today?
Crystal Wall. W-O-R-L. And that's her in the gray pants walking across the studio. She's working with her assistant, Priscilla, who's working on the molds for these sculptures. We usually work with three. We usually work with a team of three. It just depends on what you're doing, how complicated it is, and also how fast you want to do it. Because if you have a lot of people, you can start one while you're finishing the other one. So it makes it faster. I'm a glass painter now. I used to be a glass blower. And painting, it's just me. It's just my own interest change. I've always drawn and painted my whole life, so.
What was your medium before you were making glass? Were you...
I was a kid. I drew stuff. Just a kid interested in art. Okay. You gonna do the PowerPoint?
Alrighty, welcome Hilltop Heritage Middle School. For our visitors, we are just going to go over our in-class lesson from our Science of Art program, and so you're welcome to pay attention and learn a little bit about conduction, convection, and radiation. So, can we please see the in-class lesson PowerPoint? Once again, welcome Hilltop Heritage Middle School students. We're going to go over the sciences that you all learned about in the classroom setting, and then myself and Walt will ask you all some questions, and if you get the questions right, you'll win some prizes. So pay attention, and I'll come around with quizzes for you. Okay, so the first slide is conduction of heat. So, conduction of heat through an aluminum bar. Conduction is the transfer of heat through a material by direct contact. So, the stainless steel rod is, that we use for glass blowing is similar to the hot portion of the water. So at the end where we hold the hot glass, that'll be like the hot water. The bar in the middle will represent the stainless steel rod, and the hands at the end are similar to the cold water. And we'll go to the next slide, the convection of heat. We used honey as our fluid during our in-class lection. Convection is heat transfer by the movement of a heated fluid. The viscosity of glass changes when it is heated or cooled, similar to how the honey moves differently when it was heated in the classroom setting. And then the last slide is radiation. Next slide. So, radiation using a heat lamp with black and silver cans. Radiation is the emission or transmission of energy in the form of waves or particles through space or material medium. So, in the hot shop, we use different types of shields to protect us from radiation. We'll use paddles. The silver shield there in front of the orange glory hole oven that's right in front of us is one of the shields that we use to protect us from the heat. Okay, I'll come around and I'll ask you all some questions. Walt may have some questions for you also. Please raise your hand when you answer the questions to be picked, okay? Thank you.
Okay, guys. So remember, there's three kinds of heat transfer. There's radiation. That's like when you're standing outside in the summer and you feel the sun on your face and your face gets warm. That's radiation, because it's kind of energy coming from the sun. When the heat is carried by a gas or a liquid, that's convection. So when you wash your hands and the warm water comes out of the faucet, the water is carrying the heat. That's convection. When you take a hair dryer and you dry your hair, it blows hot air onto your hair to dry it off. That's convection, because the heat is being carried by hot gas, the hot air coming out of the hair dryer. Conduction is when the heat comes through something solid. So if you're holding a hot drink and your hand gets hot, the heat's coming through the wall of the cup, that's conduction. So we're going to... So when you feel the heat out of that furnace there, the glory hole, the big round furnace, and you can feel it all the way over here, what kind of transfer is that? Radiation. Who said that? There you go. We put up some of Mr. Wall's artwork up on the big screen. So this is some artwork by our guest artist, Crystal Wall. Crystal is a Indigenous artist from Alaska. On one side of her family is Filipino and Tlingit. On the other side of her family is Athabascan. And so she works in these traditional artwork called form line. And she not only does big sculptures, but she has a company called the Trickster Company. and she sells jewelry with these native designs and clothing and even skateboards. See, we got the skateboard coming up soon. You see those plaster models are the things that she wants to make in glass. So she sculpted those herself, and then we take molds off that and blow the glass into the molds, and we get the same shape. So we're making prototypes. We're sort of making small versions of them, and then later on she's going to make the final versions, and they're going to be on a wall in the SeaTac airport on the new Concourse C. So these are sculptures. So we're just sort of making models that eventually will result in the final sculpture. So we'll get back to heat transfer for a moment. If you dry your hair with a hair dryer and the heat comes from the hot air, radiation. There you go. Oh, okay. See, ask Emily. Maybe she has something different. There you go. Good. Okay. For you guys, if you have a frying pan on the stove and the handle gets hot, what kind of heat transfer is that? It's coming through something solid. The handle of the frying pan is solid, and the heat's coming through the solid handle. Anybody? Oh, you already got one. No, no. No. Radiation is like the sun. No, convection is gas or a liquid. It's transferring through the handle of the frying pan. If you have the frying pan on the stove and it's heating up from the fire from the stove, and the heat comes to your hand through the handle of the pan. Yeah, but what kind of transfer? There's three kinds: convection, conduction, and radiation. Let's see if he's got it. You go to him? Okay. Conduction. Solid is conduction. So over on the left, we're heating up some colored glass. All the glass that's in our big furnaces. Can we put up the furnace diagram? So all the machines you see with the doors closed, those are the glass furnaces. If you look up on the big screen, you'll see a diagram. That's what the furnaces look like inside. So inside each of the furnaces is a big ceramic pot. In that ceramic pot is 1,000 pounds of melted glass. We keep the melted glass at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. 2,100 degrees is as hot as the hottest volcano. So when you have a glass furnace, it's kind of like having your own private volcano. We're going to take the steel pipe, we're going to dip it into that molten glass, and then we're going to blow through that tube, and it'll blow up like a balloon. Okay, when you wash your hands and the hot water brings the heat to your hands. Which one is that? What? Convection, yes. There you go. So when you're cooking meat on a barbecue and the heat's coming off the hot coals to cook the food, radiation. There you go. You guys are good. Yes. Say what?
These two are raising their hands as well.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Okay. We'll think of another one for you. Okay. When you heat the heat that's coming out of that oven, can you feel that from the glory hole, the round oven? What's that? What kind of heat transfer is that? It's coming through the air. It's energy coming through the air. Radiation. There you go. So the three kinds of heat transfer are CCR, convection, conduction, and radiation. Conduction is through something solid. Convection is through a gas or a liquid. And radiation is energy coming through the air. So over on the left, that's Nick with the shaved head. And he's preparing the bubble to blow into the mold to make one of these sculptures. There's the mold, you can see. And that black stuff is powdered graphite. And that stuff will help the glass not stick to the mold. So we're going to take that bubble and we're going to blow it inside that mold. Crystal, our guest artist, has a commission from the SeaTac airport, and she's going to make a sculptural installation. It'll be ready in 2026. And right now, we're blowing some small versions of it for models, and then later on, she'll make the real things, and they'll put them up at the airport. All glass looks orange when it's hot. The orange color that you're seeing is the glow from the heat, not the color of the glass. Nick is heating up the glass. You guys have any questions? Do you have any questions? Why is it so cold in here? because we got the fans are blowing air from the outside. So if it's cold outside, then it gets cold in here. If it's hot outside, it gets hot in here. The whole building is like a giant chimney, so that the hot air from the furnaces goes up and out the top. So Gabe is dripping some of the excess glass into that steel can. We'll save that excess glass, and eventually that'll go back in the furnace. So now Gabe's going over to our pipe cooler. When we stick the pipe in the furnace, it gets hot, and we're spraying water on that pipe to cool it down. So the water is taking the heat away from the pipe. Does anybody know what kind of heat transfer that is? No? The water, it's water carrying the heat. When a gas or a liquid carries the heat, which one is it? Convection. in the center, Gabe has gotten his bubble really hot and soft. He's blowing a little air on the glass to stiffen it up a little. And he's pre-shaping that before we go into the mold. When we blow something in the mold, we have to make the bubble kind of like the inside of the mold so that when we blow it, it fills out the mold evenly.